Hey, Andrew Main here for part 3 of Creating Magic for Money 101. Now, I'm going to explain a concept here. Now, this is not always true. Don't hold me to it if it doesn't work out for you, but it's certainly been true in my case and other people I've talked to. When I put out my first book, which was Solo X about a dozen years ago, I mentioned to the amazing Randy, I said, hey, it's been selling pretty well. I'd only had it out for like a couple weeks, and I sold 300 copies. And Randy said to me, let me guess, you sold 300 copies. And I'm like, man, I knew they called you the amazing Randy for a reason, but how'd you know that? And well, he explained it to me that any item that comes out that's reasonably good is going to probably sell at least 300 units. And there are a couple reasons for this. One, there's a certain number of collectors that will buy anything. Two, when you sell it through wholesalers or then sell it to magic shops, they all want to have the new item. So if it's a good item, you can count on selling probably 300 units. Now, sometimes this isn't true. Sometimes you get a lot of stuff flooded on the magic market and nobody wants to buy anything. Sometimes you just have a product that's no good, it's too over expensive, whatever, and nobody will buy it. So this applies to an average price product in an average marketplace. You're going to sell probably 300 units through wholesalers. Not directly, but if you're going through wholesalers. So it means a $20 retail item, you're going to sell 300 of them at $8. But don't hold me to it, but this seems to be true. And don't try to abuse this and assume that, like, well, I'm going to sell it for $1,000 and make $300,000. No, it doesn't work like that. The higher price the item is, the less initial sales you're going to get. But 300 is a pretty good rule of thumb for an average price product between, $15 and $30. I released a couple other products and found out in the first couple weeks I could move 300 units. So what I decided to do was to base a business model around that where my break-even point was going to be $300. Now, you can bootstrap an item. You can put an item out there and you can say, all right, I'm going to produce the DVDs myself. I'm going to manufacture myself and do all that. But if you know you're going to move at least 300 units and it's costing you $4 to print that DVD yourself, you're going to lose money that you could otherwise be making if you just mass produce the DVDs. So let me explain to you how that works when we talk about how to apply 300. If you know you're going to sell 300, when I say no, you have a pretty good idea you're going to move 300 units. That should change some of your costs and how you look at them. Now we're talking really here about DVDs and booklets and things like that. Not so much about gimmicks where you have a little bit variable pricing where you can make a dozen or whatever. So before we talked about how you had your material cost, your labor cost, your marketing cost, you take these costs, subtract them from your wholesale price, and you get your profit. Well, one of our costs up there in materials I just sort of lumped in there was one-time costs. Now, a one-time cost is, let's say you hire somebody to shoot your video for you, and you pay them to edit and put together the DVD. That's a one-time cost. You pay them a flat fee that you don't have to pay them again. They're not getting a royalty. You just pay them upfront one fee, and their work is done, and then you can keep making money from your DVD forever and ever. So those one-time costs, how do you factor those in? Now, if you bootstrap something, you want to avoid as many of those one-time costs as possible. I'll get into bootstrapping into another video, which I'll show you how to launch a product for $50 and get it out there and then get the high end. But let's assume that you have one-time costs. You had to have somebody work for you, whatever. That's where the 300 number comes in very, very handy. Now, when I put out a DVD, I know I'm going to probably sell a couple thousand DVDs now, but when I first started, I wasn't sure. But I knew that I wanted to at least have, let's say, 1,000 copies on hand. So how do I pay for 1,000 units of a DVD? What does that cost? Well, the reason you want to make 1,000 DVDs as opposed to 500 or 600 is that if you make a dozen at a time, it costs you $3 or $4 to do that. But when you start making hundreds at a time, you're still going to pay $3 or $4. You don't get a price break. You don't get a cost break until you start making DVDs on a mass scale, which happens at 1,000 units. Because at 1,000 units, you make them from what's called a glass master, which costs a couple $100 to have made. And then you do, mass printing for your wraps and all this other stuff. That's when it gets cheaper, and that's when your cost per DVD, including a case and all that, starts getting to be around $1, and that's when really good profit margins come in. So your retail price, which we talked about before, should be more than your costs, enough to make it worth your while and what the market will pay. So when we have an idea of what the retail price is going to be for an item, let's just stick to like $20. We know that we're going to be selling it to wholesalers for about $8. And because of that 300 unit thing, we can hope that we're going to be selling it in volume. Volume is very, very good. So if you can expect to sell your 300 units, how do you make this work for you? Let me show you how you make it work for you. If it costs you about $1,500 to have 1,000 DVDs printed up, and you can expect to sell 300 DVDs at about $8, that means you're going to gross $2,400. You subtract your cost of your DVDs, which is going to be $1,500, That leaves you $900 profit. Now, we haven't put any marketing in there, and we haven't put in our one-time costs. Marketing, again, iTricks.com. We have great offers for you as far as doing one-time sponsored posts, podcast advertising, great ways to get your product out there. I'm just saying, probably the best value out there, easiest way to get into it. But anyhow, so $900 is what you'll have after you spend $1,500 on that and you've sold your first 300 units at $8. Now, what are your one-time costs? If you had to pay somebody to help you shoot it, let's say you paid somebody $500 to shoot the DVD and then to edit it and all that. I don't know who does all that for $500, but let's just pretend, okay? Then you take away that $500 and you've made $400. But again, without those one-time costs, just the price of the DVD and moving 300 units, you can count on making $2,400 gross, cost $1,500. You can count on a profit of $900. Now, because I did everything myself, because when I first started doing my DVDs, I decided I was going to learn how to edit, shoot, and do all of that. I didn't have any other fixed costs besides what I spent on materials. So that is how I built my business around, is I figured that every DVD I put out, if I didn't have to spend anything on materials, I could make at least $900. All right, $900 is not a lot of money when you think about the amount of time that it takes to put into something. And if you're looking at, being able to put out a DVD once every 3 months or something, you're making less than $100 a week by working on that DVD. But if you're doing something else, you have a better use of your time, or you're working multiple things like I was doing, or is getting involved in, other side businesses and whatnot, and starting my career in TV, etc., that's not a bad way to launch a small home business. You make a lot more than other people do. Now, that's not a huge amount of money. $900 is not much. To think that you're only going to make $900 from a DVD, most people won't even get started. But that is the low end. That is the idea that that every time you put out a DVD, you'll make at least $900. That's a very good starting point. Plus, you have $900, plus you have 700 DVDs sitting on your shelf. And if it's popular and you move those, you'll make $5,000 on top of the 900. You make $5,600. So that's $5,000 that you'll make. So that means if you move 1,000 DVDs, you'll make $8,000 gross. You subtract your costs here, your $1,500 there. All right. So that means you're going to make a total of $6,500 if you move all 1,000. Now you want to put some money into marketing, etc. Put $500 into that. Do some of the things I'll talk about later on. You'll make at least $5,000 or $6,000 if you move that 1,000. But the idea here is to make sure that when you launch your first DVD, you don't lose money and you have enough money left over to keep you going. So if you don't have the means right now to shoot your own video and to do all that, if you're going to use the number 300 as an example, you can make your fixed cost $900. So if you want to find out what you need to pay somebody to help you shoot a DVD and edit and produce it, talk to them and start from there and try and get a price lower than that so you can at least break even or make a little bit of money. So $900 if you have a DVD and you're going to sell 300 of them, and you're going to put it out at $20 and get that $8 from wholesaling it, means you'll make $2,400 gross, less your DVD replication cost, gives you $900 to figure out what your fixed costs are to try to put out the best DVD you can. Got it? A $900 budget. Make that your budget for your DVD that you're going to hire other people to help you with, and you can put out a good product that will sell a lot more than 300 units, ideally, in an ideal market. So there you go. 300. That's how you can use it to build your own business and how to avoid growing broke. But remember, make sure the product's good. Talk to your friends. Ask other magicians, okay? Get some opinions about that. Talk to people. Find out if the market's soft. If you're going to put out another damn torn and restored card trick, I can't help you. I can't help you with that right now, okay? It's not going to work for you. Well, maybe it will. I don't know, but just my feeling on that. That's a good solid number to base a business around them as far as I'm concerned. Figure out what your minimums are. Figure out how not to lose your shirt on it so you can put out your next product and create a product line and create a reputation for yourself. Now, later on, we're going to talk about bootstrapping. How do you start a business for next to nothing? How do you make this work? Well, tune in. We'll find out.